Greetings, friends. Welcome to episode 120 of Into the Necrosphere. My guest this week is the great Scott Taysom of Cloak out of Atlanta, Georgia. Scott brought me up to speed on everything that's been going on in the land of Cloak since they released the fantastic Burning Darkness record back in 2019. We also spoke about late 1990s cinema. We spoke about music generally. And we covered such wayward, some may even call it deviant topics, as women selling their bath water for heavy profits. But great guy. Scott's an awesome dude. Cloak is a fucking badass band, and you guys are going to have a lot of fun listening to this conversation. Also, last week, I sent the metal world reeling when I revealed that for perhaps the first time in many years, I actually heard a Dark Funeral song that I enjoyed. So coming up straight after my conversation with Scott, I am going to be talking in more detail about the new Dark Funeral record, We Are the Apocalypse, and you will get to find out whether I actually thought the rest of the record lived up to the promise of that teaser single that came out last week. I believe that song was called Leviathan. Yeah, you'll get my thoughts on that. You'll also get my thoughts on the new Hell Militia record, Hollow Void. And I will be doing my usual news, rants, and reacts. Before we get to that, however, I got an email recently from a young blood named Shahab Khan. Shahab writes, "Hey Jackie, I found your podcast on YouTube, and let me say, I hate Slipknot and Corey too." Great. However, I'm contacting you to check out Azaab's first two singles and possibly give them a spin on your podcast if you like the music. I did some digging. Turns out Azaab is Shahab's band. They are out of Pakistan, as I said. They've got a record coming out on the 15th of April called Summoning the Cataclysm, and that's going to be made available on Satanath Records. I assume Satanath is how you would say Satanas if you had a lisp. But I've checked out the music. I love it. Wanted to share it with all of you guys. And so here is probably my favorite of the two songs that Shahab sent me. This is a track called Bloodborne.
Breaking free of the chains that bind me. The retribution is an end. As my subsystems come alive, initializing my senses set on you. This is the beginning of the end. Cybernetic warrior, empowered by every matter. Prepare your silent piercing from them to decimate. As protected by the ancients before the age of corruption ends. A savior of the voiceless, blessed of the light we rise from the ashes of a forgotten morphing life. Born into contempt, forged by the flames, I am the bulwark of faith, the eye of the form, I am the Bloodborne. Architects of apartheid, hear my forecry. Behold the armored fist of justice as arrived. Locking targets across your infernal empire. No one shall be spared. This is the beginning of the end. Cybernetic warrior, empowered by antimatter. Prepare your time and busy. Prototype, ballistic, launcher, harness of death. Beyond organic, even nanotheir. Born into conflict. Forged by the flames, I am the bulwark of fate. The eye of the form, I am the bloodborne. Initializing nuclear launch sequence.
Bloodborne by Azaab. The record, as I said, is called Summoning the Cataclysm, and absolutely awesome to hear a band like that coming out of a country where perhaps you wouldn't necessarily expect high quality death metal to be coming from, but proof that our movement cuts across boundaries and borders. A couple of quick announcements before we head to the main event. If you're new to the podcast, elbow drop the subscribe button on your podcast platform of choice. There's a video version on of the show on YouTube, and then there's audio versions on Spotify, Amazon, or Apple Podcasts, and various others. If the spirit moves you to do so, leave me a 5-star review, because that really helps the show. And also remember to head over to the Into the Necrosphere Teespring store and pick yourself out one of those joggers, one of those hoodies, or one of those t-shirts, and strut your struff on the mean streets of wherever you're from. And then finally, if you're done listening to this episode of the podcast and you've listened to all 119 other episodes and you're running around your house confused thinking, what should I listen to next? Then go check out the Everything Went Black, Necromaniacs, Horrorwolf 666, and Iblis Manifestations podcasts. Iblis Manifestations is the new podcast launched by my friend Shaihan, the main man in a fucking fantastic band called Trivax. He just posted his first episode last week, and it is top-notch stuff. So I can strongly recommend you go and check that out. For now, however, sit back, enjoy. This is Scott Taysom of Cloak. So how's everything going, buddy? I just said to you offline now, this kind of feels like it's been almost overdue slightly, because I've had Katie in my ear saying that that you're a man to speak to, and that kind of generally she thought that you guys would be a great feature, or a great band to feature on the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been my guitarist Max turned me on to your podcast last year sometime, so we've been a fan ever since, and I think it'll be a good conversation for sure.
Awesome. So what have you been getting up to over the past couple of months? I would assume, like I follow American politics pretty closely, as you no doubt have seen from the podcast. Mm-hmm. At Atlanta, I actually have a friend who lives there, and he recently told me he'd upped and moved to Florida because he said he couldn't handle the. Now, fair enough. He said he couldn't handle all the wokeness in Georgia, but he also works for, and I won't divulge the name, but he works for one of the major social media networks. I suspect it had more to do with work than it had to do with Georgia. So
I could see that.
Yeah, I was about to say, what's been the? I guess actually let's backtrack. What were things like in Georgia? Kind of at the height of the lockdowns and the pandemic and stuff like that. Were they losing their minds as well, same as kind of big parts of the rest of the country?
So Atlanta proper definitely is a more kind of, centralized liberal city at this point. It feels very much like the LA of the South at this point, with all the, the Hollywood movies here. A lot of people, when I say I'm from Atlanta, they'll be like, oh, the South, like, man, is it racist down there? And I just say, I mean, not really. That, there's a huge majority of a Black population here. It's a very diverse city, and Atlanta's really not like the rest of the South in a way. But it was Atlanta proper was very, kind of kind of lockdown friendly, but you go out into the burbs a little bit, 20, 30 minutes north. And I mean, it was very, very different story out there, not really a lot of masks, people just kind of doing their thing. So it's funny how different it really is when you just venture 20 minutes outside of the perimeter.
Yeah. And how did that affect you personally? Did it hurt? I mean, obviously you guys, I know you were, if memory serves me correctly, you were touring with Uada and with 1349 when when everything kind of came to a crashing halt. But as far as work and everything else is concerned, did it impact you massively?
Not really. I do mostly remote stuff. Well, that's not true. I actually was doing a lot more live video work at the time, and that pretty much got totally crushed. So I've kind of changed to strictly remote for my personal work. But as far as the band stuff, yeah, it was pretty bad. I mean, we got off of that tour, and that was the tour for the Burning Dawn. It released the day that tour started, actually, was the release of that record. So we really hit the ground running, and we were feeling great about things. That was an awesome tour for us. And then, we had some tours planned in the spring of 2020, and it just, it obviously crushed all that. But we started working on an album in about January, February of 2020, right before the pandemic kind of hit us. So we just went into that mode and just wrote the album. And, it took about a year and a half to write. It's a pretty detail oriented album. But to answer your question, I mean, it was kind of just, the same story as any band would say. It was shitty not to be able to get out there and tour on a new record. In my mind, The Burning Dawn is almost like a lost record at this point, because we are still touring on it now. We're picking up the pieces a little bit, but there's something just kind of obscured about it at this point, because it was one of those pandemic albums,
Yeah. And it's a shame too, because it came out, really only about 4 or 5 months before things closed down to a great response. And, I've gone back and I've listened to it quite a few times. And I mean, it's a record that not only just generally speaking sounds great and is really enjoyable to listen to, but you can hear how well those songs would have gone over live. What was that kind of early response to some of that material?
Oh, it's really good. I think they translate better live than the songs on Venomous, in my opinion, our first record. So, they're a bit shorter, a bit harder hitting in some ways. But yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, it definitely translated live pretty well. So it was nice to see that response for sure.
They kind of have a bit more swagger to them as well, I feel. I feel like as you say, they're harder hitting, but they definitely have like I think the groove is a little nastier a little nastier, but a little more pronounced as well.
Yeah, definitely. And then it's a little more, I guess, like rockin' than our first album, which was a bit more it had a little bit more of a mysterious vibe to those songs. It was longer and drawn out, and Dawn was much more kind of to the point. And I think the next one we're working on is sort of in the middle of those, but it's definitely the hardest stuff we've ever done, for sure.
You mentioned, of course, that you do work remote. I would assume that's you running your OnlyFans account.
No, not for me.
which became very popular during lockdown.
Yes, it did.
Yeah. And I will say, in the interest of transparency, if I were an attractive woman, without a shadow of a doubt, I would be milking it for everything it's worth. If Belle Delphine can sell her bathwater for $30 for like a small vial of it, I mean, literally everything that comes out of it, every orifice of mine would be up on eBay.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting time where you can really be an entrepreneur with things like that, and just it's such a different time, and I know many people that kind of took that upon themselves to do it, and to each their own.
Yeah, it's I don't know whether if we look back in the annals of history, we'll look at it and go, things like Belle Delphine and that lady from, I can't remember what her name was, but you must know the story about the woman that was bottling her own farts and selling it. She made, in the space of 4 weeks, $250,000. And then she ended up nearly having a heart attack because she was eating so many beans and
Seriously, no, I did
Foods that
not hear
would
that one.
induce flatulence. Yeah,
That's fucking insane.
I'll see if I can find the article. But I mean,
That's
it's like if you look at that, if people study this era in 100 years time, provided the world is still standing, I do wonder whether they'll see things like that and go, man,
degenerate.
when civilization fell, the markers were all really clear, and
Totally.
people should have seen it coming.
It's weird. Sometimes I think in 20 years, if we'll look back and be like, remember social media back then? Man, it was just so, just so, a lot of people are kind of making that move to get off of social media in general. And I just really wonder what it's going to be like in 15, 20, 30 years. But yeah, as far as what you were mentioning, I mean, that stuff is pretty insane. I don't really know who would be too interested in buying that stuff, but there's people of all walks of life and interests out there for sure.
So I've just found the article. So it reads, Stephanie Mato has an unusual CV. After becoming a reality TV star by appearing on 90 Day Fiancé, Mato took up a very lucrative new profession, selling jars of her own farts over the internet. Mato from Connecticut received a request for her jarred gas on the adult site Unfiltered back in November. She charged a cool $1,000 per jar before offering discounts around the holiday season. Who knew so many would buy her farts as gifts? Managing to make around $200,000. At one point, she was pumping out 97 jars over 2 days to cope with demand.
$1,000 a jar.
Dude, it's fucking insane. The thing is, like, a couple of years ago, I wouldn't have believed it if you told me that. I would have said that's bullshit. It's fake news. Yeah. But I knew someone a couple of years back who had an OnlyFans account, and she told me a story, and then I called her out and it said, you're lying. And then she showed me the receipts and the emails. There was a guy who offered her £3,000 to get on camera and basically insult him for a half an hour while he jerked off.
Yeah.
And I said to her, this must be some like bored businessman, high profile banker, guy's got way too much money. And she's like, no, he's like a delivery driver. He works for the UPS of the UK, and it was his Christmas bonus. I was like, what the fuck?
It's fucking weird what some men especially are into. It's I don't get a lot of it, but yeah, that's that's fucking insane. And the amount that they'll pay for it, it's strange. It's like paying to be a beta. I don't know. It's really odd to me, but like I said, to each their own.
Paying to be disrespected and basically paying to be painted as someone that woman would never in a million years be attracted to.
No, yeah, it's fucking weird. It's super strange to me, but anyone that's listening that's into that, that's okay.
Well, anyone that's listening that wants to do a collab, like Into the Necrosphere,
yeah,
I'm down with that any day of the week.
Yeah, if you know about it, hit them up.
But yeah, you were talking about social media. I spoke to Mike from Tombs about this a while back, and I feel like for all of the good that it's done, it is definitely like life was way better without it. I mean, I don't know how old you are now. I think you just turned 30, right?
I just turned 32 last Tuesday.
So you see, you're still a young blood. You don't even remember all the, having to call your friends, agree on a time, believe the person's actually going to turn up there.
So MySpace hit pretty hard when I was a freshman in high school. So, when I was already doing band stuff and skateboarding and middle school, it was kind of that time before social media. So I do remember it, but yeah, I mean, it's, right when 15 hit, it was, MySpace was the thing, but that wasn't what it is today. It wasn't Facebook. It wasn't Instagram. Like we still called each other, I didn't even text. I didn't have a cell phone until I started driving at around 16, and I didn't have like the plan to text on it. So, I still called people and we had a great neighborhood growing up, and most of the friends that were playing in my band at the time that I'm still friends with today were kind of neighborhood kids. So I was a very outdoorsy kind of guy anyways. And I never liked gaming or just sitting on the computer. And I never just texted all day or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, like American Online, AIM, all that stuff, that was a thing for sure.
Yeah.
And we would kind of sit on that. But yeah, it was a different time. I mean, you obviously remember it way more, you know, being
How old do you think I am, you
no,
No, I do. So I'm 41.
41. Okay.
So yeah, so dude, I remember when you know people I knew started getting dial-up connections.
Yeah.
How fucking blown away I was because I could download a picture of suffocation, print it out of my dad's color printer, and stick it up on my wall. And
mid-90s or something.
Was that sorry?
Mid-90s or something, or late 90s?
Yeah, this was like probably 1996, 1997. And that's, you know, when I was reading webzines like Chronicles of Chaos, which I eventually started writing for. That's how I discovered all of the music that I started getting into, like all of the obscure stuff. Because, you know, we could use Nuclear Blast catalogs to figure out things, but, you know, you kind of, it was a bit of a roll of the dice. You know, sometimes you got, you know, for every Samael, you bought a Dismal Euphony, and you know that was maybe a little more regrettable. Yeah. So when I was able to start downloading stuff like Chronicles of Chaos, I mean that was fucking awesome. And I remember I would get people to download it for me, then I would read the text only version at home and be all excited on my, you know, reading it on my computer. But it definitely was a different time. And like, I mean, I feel hypocritical sometimes when I bash on social media being on the show, because the show wouldn't have existed without social media. You know, it started off with me just, you know, kind of drawing from a pool of my own friends and then expanding that out. And exactly as you and I've just met, you know, it came through Facebook. So it has its benefits, but I definitely think it just something feels so wrong to me when I see a 12-year-old sitting there glued to their phone, and it's like,
totally, definitely.
And then 5 hours later, you know, it's still the same movement, you know.
It's odd. And the dating, you know, the dating scene with social media, like with young kids especially, it's way different. Yeah, but as far as music, it does some good for sure. I mean, Cloak really, you know, got its wings from just spreading stuff online and people finding us. I mean, the way we got signed to Season of Mist was from an online friend that we had, you know, who worked for Season of Mist. So there's some good to it for sure, but there's, you know, it's not going to be what it was back in the day before, you know, in a time where I was way too young to remember. But, you know, I've heard many stories of more of the cult days of black metal and how that was. And it's not really going to be like that. But I think there's a string of bands that kind of still do that now, and they're not really on social media. But if you want to be a band that's successful, you know, you kind of have to, that's your website these days.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think sometimes there's like an unreasonable expectation of some fans, especially in the black metal scene, that all bands in black metal should be like that. You know, you shouldn't have any social media presence. Everything should come out on, you know, limited edition, 200 cassettes, nothing else. And it's just.
Go ahead.
No, I was about to say it's not. Well, as you say, it's not feasible if you're a band who actually wants to make, you know, money and at least be in a position where you can tour and sustain yourself. But the other thing is, these same motherfuckers that are saying this are the guys that are up on Soulseek downloading albums as soon as they come out.
Exactly, and you know, I think there's ways to use social media if you're a band that's not lame. You know, I one of my favorite black metal bands currently is Horde and Rife out of Norway, and the label they're on, Territure
Awesome
Possessions.
band.
Yeah, they're great. And Territure Possessions, the label, they utilize their Instagram very well. And I think that's okay. You know, I love that band, and I never was turned off by any of their, you know, social media presence or anything. Yeah. There's some bands that utilize it a little bit weird, and it's just sort of humorous when you don't really want it to be. And I don't know. I think
takes away some of the mystery.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's just how the times are today, and it's a little strange, but you know, it's just kind of ingrained in us at this point.
Yeah, it's definitely, you know, again, that air of mystery that a lot of bands used to have. You know, like I actually wasn't there for the Kiss boom, and actually, you know, Kiss wasn't really part of my musical journey at all. Right. But I do speak to so many people that when they saw them live for the first time, they were so blown away because, this band seemed so larger than life. You would never, no one saw them without their masks for at least a lengthy period of time.
Totally.
And all of that stuff is gone now, because if even a band like Mayhem, technically speaking, if you look at their social media, they give an awful lot away as far as privacy is concerned. They're very open about it. I just think for some, I admire them because somehow they seem to pull it off. Like Attila can seem like the most normal guy, and you can have a couple of jokey photos, but as soon as the dude gets on stage, it's all business.
Definitely, and I've actually noticed that too about him in particular. It's a different Mayhem than the classic stuff that that we all heard of. But it's different for sure.
One dude that I think does do a fantastic job of his social media, his presence, his whole vibe is fucking brilliant, and I know you agree with me on this. Daniel Mortus of Funeral Mist.
Yeah, definitely. I love Funeral Mist. I love him as a singer in Marduk as well. He's also a great graphic designer, and does a lot of their shirts. Under the I think it's called Holy Poison name. Yeah. He's legit for sure. That last Funeral Mist record was incredible, and the one before was incredible.
Yeah. Well, I for me, they've always. I mean, Funeral Mist is him, and it's always been like elite of elite black metal. But what I loved about the release of this new record, was just the balls to come out and just like a week before, just one post, new album, December 17th. No build up, no prelude, no nothing, no press.
No, same with Hecatomb. He did the same exact thing. It was like a week or two before. And I mean, there's like no words needed really. Those last two are fucking great. I think Hecatomb might be my favorite at this point. For a minute it was the Maranatha album. Yeah. But they're all great, and they're insane sounding. No other band sounds like them. It's like religious terror that it has this huge Christianity aspect to it, the vocals and the choirs and the lyrics, but it's it's clearly coming from the other angle. It's a really interesting. I was about to
say that's a good way to describe it. It's coming from the other angle for sure. I mean, he's the only guy that can make a televangelist sound fucking grim. I mean, on Maranatha, that song, it's like the first like 4 minutes is literally the sermon. It's like they scoffed at his feast of love, and then like it just goes in. It's brilliant.
I love his use of sound clips. I think it's brilliant, like you said, for sure. That was Maranatha to me is a more artistic album in that way, where he uses sound clips almost as lyrics in the songs, almost as vocals, which is extremely interesting. And there's also a part where he uses the soundtrack to Nosferatu, the 70s Nosferatu, playing in the background. And it's just it's an extremely unique band. No one else is really like them. The only other band I can sort of think that sounds that chaotic at times is the Catharsis album, World Without End. It kind of has a similar vibe.
Yeah, there's a couple of bands. I wouldn't say they sound quite as chaotic, but Panzerfaust, for example, I think have like a similarly like just bludgeoning feel. Selbst is another band. Aversio Humanitatis is another band that kind of have that same vibe. But yeah, he's in a league of his own. And actually, you mentioned Hecatomb, the release of that was actually in some ways more ballsy because he released it a week after Victoria. I always felt like there was something to that. Like he wasn't happy with how Victoria sounded, and like he almost put out that record as a way to not necessarily distance himself from it, because he went on tour of the band and he was playing all those songs. But I almost just felt like he wanted to sort of, and maybe I was reading too much into it, but like he wanted to go, this is what this shit should sound like,
That's an interesting point, because Victoria was very stripped down as a Marduk album. I enjoy that record. I like it. But I think it kind of has that continuation where French Schwein kind of left off, but it's more simplistic. And I think they're going to do their next record as a more spiritual record. They've mentioned, or they've kind of hinted at before. So we'll see. I think it'll be less World War II themed and more kind of back to the satanic spiritual vibe.
Which is where it should, which is where they've been at their best. Like the tear they went on from Romans 5:12 to Wormwood to Serpent Sermon.
Serpent Sermon's
that
probably
is
my favorite.
almost, I was about to say, that's unassailable.
Yeah, it's really good. I need to go back and revisit the first two you mentioned, but Serpent Sermon is definitely the one I probably put on most.
Yeah. I think if you like Funeral Mist, I think Wormwood is probably the closest Marduk have come to doing a Funeral Mist record. And
Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised if, because they don't give much away about who writes what, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was a record that Mortis wrote almost entirely himself. But then Serpent Sermon, again, just phenomenal. I mean, the World of Blades is, to me, one of the greatest black metal songs ever written.
Yeah.
And the whole bit where they are doing the kind of chant at the end about, and the night or the light of the new dawn shall come with waves of destruction. Just absolute brilliance.
It's powerful. The opening track on that album too, I think it's the title track, is super, super powerful.
Yeah. So you were talking about movies earlier, and one thing that I've touched on it with a couple of people, but I was keen to kind of get your take on it, especially now that I know you're a little bit younger, because I've kind of been doing the same with my girlfriend. She's a fair bit younger than me. I've been showing her all the great stuff from the late 90s, early 2000s. And going back to those movies like Fight Club, LA Confidential, American History X, stuff like that.
I'm a huge fan of all those movies.
The thing is, it's mind-blowing how many, like now when I think about it, like I used to get so excited around Oscar season because there'd be so many cool movies coming out. And now it's like, I mean, I can barely find anything worth watching throughout the year. And Oscar season is, okay, well, if it's not about someone who's being oppressed or someone who's
it's a lot of Netflix bullshit.
Yeah, it's unwatchable.
Yeah, I just put on a shitty Netflix movie the other night called The Weekend Away. It was just pretty fucking bad. It's about a bad guy, a bad man. But I agree. I think I was speaking about this a couple of years ago with friends when I revisited a lot of what I just call the 90s epics. The 2 to 3 hour long movies and the big drawn out dramas that you mentioned. To me, the 90s had some of the greatest movies in history. It was almost like golden age in many ways. LA Confidential, like you mentioned. American History X is one of my favorites. Usual Suspects and The Green Mile. There's just so many good movies. Forrest Gump, just a ton of those, the long journey epics. I really, really like those. Because classically I'm a horror fan. I grew up on horror. And that was pretty much all I watched until, 15 to 25. Yeah. And then I felt like I'd seen everything. And so now I tend to gravitate more towards thrillers and a lot of those older dramas and neo-noir movies from the late 70s, early 80s, and some even in the 90s. I have a huge list on my phone that I keep, I keep movies that I want to watch, and I'll try to revisit it and figure out what I want to watch each night. And the list is huge, but I definitely go on kicks where I watch a bunch of movies off of that list, night after night.
And as I was saying, though, it's like, if you think about the year that I want to double check this, actually, you think about the year that LA Confidential came out as an example. Let's see.
99 had a bunch of great movies.
So 98, I think, was LA Confidential. Yeah. And it won Best Supporting Actress, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Picture, Best Original Score. Did it win Best Picture? Yeah, I think it did. But so other movies that came that were out in 1998, just as a sample, right? So Best Picture, Oscar, Best Picture nominees. Okay, Titanic, that's terrible. I wouldn't have. that didn't win any awards. Good Will Hunting, great movie.
Yeah,
as good as it gets, but schmaltzy, but not too bad. Full Monty, not really my vibe. But LA Confidential, fantastic. Then in 1999, You had Elizabeth, which was good. The Thin Red Line, which was good. The Vita e Bella, where that was Life is Beautiful, which is also very, very good. Shakespeare in Love, crap. Saving Private Ryan, fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
But I mean, there was always at least like 4 or 5, and I mean, there were things that obviously didn't get nominated that they were brilliant as well. 2000, The Insider, excellent. The Sixth Sense, great. Green Mile, you just mentioned, fantastic. American Beauty.
Yep.
I don't give a shit what Kevin Spacey has done in his private life, but that is a fucking fantastic movie, and
it's really good.
No shame in admitting I shed a tear at the end of the film. So
yeah, it's a good movie. I'm surprised Magnolia wasn't on. I think that was 99. I'm surprised that wasn't on the list.
I think Magnolia might have been 2001, you know.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no, it doesn't seem like it was. So 2001 was Erin Brockovich, which is crap. Traffic, which is great. Gladiator, great. Chocolat, garbage. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, excellent. But I know what you mean, though. It was in there somewhere. I just can't remember which. Which year? I'm a big Paul Thomas Anderson fan, but I'm not going to go down this track again because I've spoken about this movie so many times on the podcast. People are going to fucking lose their mind if I if I talk about it again. But there will be blood. My favorite movie of all time.
I've been wanting to revisit that lately. You know, I've actually only seen it once, and it was when it came out. So I really need to rewatch that.
It was. I can remember about 3 or 4 movies in my life where I watched it in the cinema and my jaw just dropped at the end of the movie and I couldn't believe what I'd seen, and that is There'll Be Blood is one. Traffic was another one. No Country for Old Men was another one.
Yep.
Those 3 are the ones I remember most distinctly. Actually, Fight Club was the other one.
Yeah.
But I went to go and see There'll Be Blood 3 times at the movies. Oh, wow. And then when it came out, I bought the DVD. I've seen that movie at least, I mean, no exaggeration, at least 50 or 60 times. Awesome. I fucking love it. Every time I watch it, it's like listening to a great piece of music where you always seem to discover these little nuances and these little things that you love about it. I feel like that about that movie every single time I see it.
Definitely. Yeah, there's definitely movies like that for me. Do you like Gangs of New York too?
Yeah, I love it.
Love it. Because same actor, right? Daniel Day-Lewis. Yeah. I rewatched that about like half a year ago or so, and man, that movie is amazing.
It's amazing. The only thing I would say is I love Leonardo DiCaprio, but man, he got acted off screen by Daniel Day-Lewis. And like I every time I watch it, I keep thinking to myself, like, the acting chops you need to have to be able to be across from this man on screen and actually hold your own, I think are absolutely extraordinary.
That's probably extremely intimidating.
Yeah. Well, I think he even said it, and he said because Daniel Day-Lewis is such a, over the top method actor, he never breaks character when they're off. He never broke character when they're off camera. So he would basically like sit staring at Leonardo DiCaprio intimidatingly, and basically speak like Buffalo Bill. There's Paul Thomas Anderson was talking about how when he was shooting There'll Be Blood with him, he would speak like Daniel Plainview when the camera's on rolling, and he'd be cracking jokes and talking normally. And he said it'd be fucking hilarious to have the conversation because it's a super intense character, and this character that you invest so much in as far as the movie is concerned, and he's talking to you off camera in exactly the same voice, same mannerism, same everything, but bullshitting, just kind of shooting the breeze.
That would be crazy. Yeah. Wow. I totally respect the method acting for sure.
Yeah. Have you ever seen like just talking about like the method and the off-air stuff? Have you seen a clip? I'm going to assume you're a fan of The Shining.
Yeah.
Have you seen the clip where Jack Nicholson is firing himself up to do the infamous "Here's Johnny," smashing down the bathroom door?
No.
So if you get hold of the 4K Blu-ray, I think it might be on the collector's edition, like the Criterion edition or whatever as well.
Okay.
There's about an hour and a half making of film that was shot by Vivian Kubrick, and it's it's not really a making of. It's kind of just her following them around with a camera. There's this phenomenal moment where he's in this bedroom and they on set and they're busy talking to him about what's going to happen, and then you see him stand up and he like starts like pacing around the room, and he starts yelling and shouting and like hitting his head, and like all of a sudden he just you hear Kubrick go action, and then he grabs the axe and he goes and starts smashing down the bathroom door, and then as soon as they yell cut, he just calms down again, sits down, laughs. Typical Jack Nicholson.
That's insane.
It's incredible.
It's like when you're about to go on stage or something, you got to amp yourself up. You know, a lot of people kind of do that backstage, but I couldn't imagine trying to get into that character in The Shining.
Fuck no, definitely
Total
not.
insanity. I've been wanting to rewatch that again lately. Like I said, I have a long fucking list that I need to watch, but I own that one, so I can watch that anytime. But
yeah.
Are you a DVD guy, or do you mostly stream? Or?
Yeah, I am a DVD guy. I've become a 4K Blu-ray DVD guy, so
Nice.
I'm a bit more I'm a bit more considered in what I'm getting on 4K Blu-ray.
Selective, kind of.
Yeah, because like I don't have enough space for. I mean, I used to have a collection of a good probably 500 to 600 movies on DVD, and then the new format comes out, and you're like, okay, I'm not going to replace all of this shit on Blu-ray. And then 4K Blu-ray comes out, and so it goes on. So on 4K Blu-ray, I've kind of gone and I've selected stuff that I know I'm going to rewatch many times. So it'll be things like what do I have here? Blade Runner 2049,
nice.
1917, which I thought was phenomenal, even though it's
the World War I movie.
Yeah.
That was really good. I saw that in theaters.
I thought that was incredible. Dunkirk, I've got. I've got the Lord of the Rings 4K remaster because my daughter is a really big fan, and I think they did an incredible job of it. I've got the Hobbit as well, so stuff like that. Parasite I got as well. Parasite's really, really good, especially on 4K.
That was really good. I saw that in theaters too. I have a pretty big DVD collection. It's mostly made up of horror because I mostly bought that, and I got a good bit of VHSs too, but because I still have like a VCR that I'll watch stuff on. But have you seen, as far as newer thrillers, did you ever see Nocturnal Animals?
Oh, I know exactly what movie you're talking about, but I've not seen it yet. No.
I really like that. That's one of my favorite newer movies. If you have a chance, I think it's streaming still on Netflix, but I own that Blu-ray, and it's really fucking good. Jake Gyllenhaal and
I was just about to say Jake Gyllenhaal. Isn't Nicole Kidman in it as well?
Amy Adams.
Yeah. And now I remember why. Or now I know why I remember it. It was directed by Tom Ford.
Yep, and the first movie he did, I think it's called A Single Man, was really good too.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's interesting that he started directing, because both of his movies are really, really good. I don't know much about him as he's a designer, right? Fashion designer.
He's a fashion designer, and he does very expensive colognes and things like that.
And perfumes, and I mean, I don't care about any of that stuff that much.
You don't mask up.
Yeah, but I just that's cool though. I mean, those movies are great. I would highly recommend that one. I really liked it. Yeah.
Speaking of horror, and if you're into horror, are you into? Have you developed a taste for South Korean fare?
Not really. I haven't watched many Asian horrors, but I've seen some of them. But I know that their horror, like their version of horror, is pretty insane. I can't really name them off the top of my head, but I've definitely seen a handful. Was there one you had in mind that you were gonna?
Well, so I was the same as you. So when I was young, it was only horror. I'd watch nothing else. And then I developed an interest in foreign movies because my dad used to watch foreign films, and I would watch it with him, and kind of got interested in that. And then from there on, someone once lent me a copy of the South Korean version, the original Old Boy. And Old Boy, that completely blew me away. And so literally, great. I started going on a tear, a little bit like, discovering new music and new metal. You just start watching one thing after the other. I watched Chaser, I Saw the Devil, Memoirs of a Murderer, Train to Busan, The Wailing. It's like one thing after the other. Obviously,
I need to see The Wailing. I just watched Train to Busan last year sometime, and our guitarist Max has told me The Wailing is pretty amazing. I don't think I've seen it. I feel like we've just talked about it a lot.
You'll know if you've seen it. It's intense, man. It's really intense.
I'll have to watch that this week. But yeah, Old Boy I watched years ago. I really liked that. What about the original Ring and The Grudge? Are those Korean?
No, they're Japanese.
Japanese.
So The Ring was always to me a decent movie, but like one of the differences between, at least in my experience, and I know people will cite things like Ichi the Killer and go, "You're wrong about this," when I talk about graphic gore, but like movies like the Ring they're not very gory. So I always feel like I'm not somebody who needs to see excessive gore, and I don't watch movies for gore. I'm not like, I'm not somebody who, when Human Centipede 2 came out, I was like, yeah, you can't wait to see the guy, take a cheese grater to his penis.
Yeah.
But it's like, I like that sort of stuff. But there does need to be in a horror movie. I think for a horror movie to be effective, there does need to be at least some, like, gore has to serve the purpose of providing real danger to the monster, right? If the monster catches you, very bad things are going to happen. I felt like with the Ring, they didn't really do that properly. There was cool set pieces and stuff like that, but I never felt the degree of menace that I would feel. Whereas I think that's the one thing that South Korean horror movies do very, very well, is they know exactly when to add in the gore, and when they do, it's unflinching. Yeah. But when they use it in exactly the right way. Like Train to Busan is a great example.
Yeah.
It's not overly gory, but it's when it needs to be violent, it's very, very violent, but it's like sudden bursts and then it kind of pulls back. And again, I mean, zombie movies and stuff like that, I'm not really interested in zombies. And I think The Walking Dead probably killed what little love I had of anything in the zombie genre.
That show got pretty bad.
It got abysmal. We'll talk about that in a second. But Train to Busan, I just thought was fantastic because they anchored it so well in, this guy just wanting to protect his daughter. That just made the whole movie just sing.
Right. And yeah, especially you being a father. I mean, I'm sure that kind of resonated with you.
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
As far as zombie movies, one of my first loves was Dawn of the Dead. So I love the Romero stuff. And I just think I'm pretty picky with zombie movies as well, but the good ones are really good. Day of the Dead, I just recently rewatched, obviously Night of the Living Dead. But we were talking about gore, and I think my favorite sort of gore is Lucio Fulci, the Italian director, movies like City of the Dead or City of the Living Dead, The Beyond, House by the Cemetery. I think his use of gore is really, really good. Zombie 2. That's kind of the type of gore that I like. I always have this kind of comparison. I say Lucio Fulci is more death metal, and Dario Argento is more black metal, because he's more atmospheric and kind of occultish and mysterious, and whereas Fulci is just gore and zombies and just pure, terror. So I like both of those directors a lot.
I'm going to sound like an ignoramus here, but Dario Argento did Suspiria, right?
Suspiria, Opera, Phenomena, but Suspiria was the big one.
Did you watch the Suspiria remake?
Yeah, and you know what? I actually liked it.
Yeah, me too.
I was pretty surprised. I was very skeptical going in because Suspiria is one of my favorite movies, and I thought they did a great job. What's Dakota Johnson?
Yeah,
she did a good job. I mean, that scene towards the end with the contorted dancing and shit was insane.
Now that was going to be what I was going to say. Like, gore to me that adds menace and purpose to what you're seeing. That's a phenomenal example of that.
Yeah, I've been wanting to rewatch that too. I need to watch that again. I saw that in theaters and that was it. But I walked out, pleasantly surprised. I thought it was good.
I thought Tom York's score was incredible as well. I thought that added so much to the movie. It was
for sure. That's the guy from Radiohead, right?
Yeah. And again, I'm unashamed in the fact that they have so much crap in their back catalog, but when they're good, they're so fucking good.
Yeah, our guitarist likes them a lot too. He showed me some on our last tour, but I think I was just really tired. I wasn't really paying attention to it, but yeah, I mean, I don't doubt they have great shit. I mean, they're big for a reason.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then the one last horror movie I needed to ask you about, Hereditary. That's the test. If you didn't like that movie, the conversation's over.
No, I did like it. I liked that, and I liked Midsummer.
Yeah, see, Midsummer for me, I thought it started off so well. I love that opening scene with a family, being killed and stuff like that. That was awesome.
Yeah.
But beyond that, it didn't do much for me. But Hereditary, I just think is like that's to me, that's the horror movie that's done the most for me since probably the first time I saw The Shining, which was when I was about 14 years old.
I could see that. My only thing with him as a director in both of those movies is he kind of just sort of dabbles on the cult aspect or the occult aspect. And I just wanted like a little bit more from the ending of Hereditary. That's the only thing with, with the cult and the grandma and stuff that was sort of touched upon. But then again, maybe he didn't want to spoon feed it to us, and maybe it would have ruined it if it was explained a little bit more.
They did I don't know if this is an urban legend, but when they did test screenings for that movie, they had pulse monitors connected to the audience, and the average pulse rate of the audience in the last 10 minutes of the movie was 165 beats a minute, because they kind of wanted to see how tense it is. And I can believe that to be true, because everyone I've watched it with, that's not necessarily that doesn't watch a lot of horror movies. I mean, the ending really freaks them out, massively freaks them out.
The part that really hit me, well, I don't want to give it away, but the car ride scene from the party.
Oh yeah.
I was just like, oh shit, okay, that took a turn.
It's because it's so unexpected. It's like you, like the girl is obviously, I won't say much more, but she's such a prominent part of the trailer. So when the car ride scene comes, it's like, fuck me. Okay, yeah. Things are going to be very different now. And then obviously you have that phenomenally well directed moment where the son is kind of waiting for his mom to discover what's happened.
Right.
And the camera is just trained on him, and it takes you back to everything bad you've ever done as a kid, where you kind of knew your parents were going to come across it, and something you broke or whatever the case may be. And it's that build up of suspense until they actually discover it. It's just incredible movie. Absolutely incredible.
Definitely. Yeah. I've seen that one twice, I think, right when it came out. Definitely saw it in theaters, and then I might have seen it twice in theaters. And then I saw Midsummer just once in theaters, but I liked that one, but I see what you mean. It's pretty different.
Yeah. I thought it could have been so much cooler. I think because I agree with what you're saying, and I think it's especially true of that movie. I think if they had really leaned into the occult stuff, like in a less cartoonish way than they did in a movie like The Ritual, I think it could have been brilliant. Yeah. I think it would have been really, really cool.
Did you like The Ritual or no?
Yeah, I liked it. I just thought I thought the first 45 minutes were a 9 out of 10 movie, and the last half an hour was a 5 out of 10 movie.
Okay. Yeah. So that's actually an Atlanta director, and he did a movie recently called Night House. Have you seen that?
Yes, I have.
I liked that a lot.
Yeah, I really did. I really enjoyed that. I just want to double check it's the right one. It's with a girl from
She kind of looks like the lady from The Shining, but modern.
Yeah, she was in another movie that I really enjoyed called The Town.
The Town
with Ben Affleck.
Oh yeah, The Town's awesome. That's a great movie. Yeah,
awesome movie.
The heist movie.
Yeah.
It just got really dark here. Hang on, it's starting to rain.
No worries. I thought it's because we're talking about all this occult stuff.
Yeah, right when we were talking about Hereditary.
The lights go out.
Yeah, it's raining a lot, but The Town's good, yeah. But Night House, I really, really liked that movie, and I thought it was cool that it was an Atlanta director who did. He did a segment in that VHS movie. I don't know if you've seen that.
I have, and there was another movie that's coming out now, directed by someone who worked on one of the VHS movies that looked really interesting. I'm going to need to see what the name.
Oh, was it called? Is it the new A24 movie?
I think so. I think so. Yeah.
It's called or Ty West, who did House of the Devil, which I love. I love House of the Devil. What's that movie called? It's just like a letter, I think.
Yeah. Ty West also did a really cool movie called The Sacrament. which I thought was one of the most fucking disturbing things I have ever seen in my entire
I
life.
don't know if I've seen that one.
So it's about it's about this religious, like David Koresh kind of sort of Christian cult. And like the last half hour of the movie is where everybody's committing mass suicide. But it's done in such like there's such a gritty kind of realism to that ending. And having grown up, I think in that environment, not necessarily not a David Koresh type cult, but I mean I was dragged to church twice on Sundays. It just felt so fucking like there was like a familiarity to how it felt, but it just felt so completely creepy.
I just looked it up. So that's actually Eli Roth.
Are you sure? I'm on Wikipedia right now looking at it. It's directed and written by Ty West. It was produced by Eli Roth.
Oh, okay. Oh, you're right. Eli Roth presents. I don't know. Oh, wait. Did I see this? Is it where they're like in the church and people they have to like tap?
You broke up there for a second.
Or am I thinking of something else?
Yeah, this is like a it's like a religious commune almost. And then towards the end they
is there a big gunfight? Is there a big gunfight in it?
I can't even remember.
Or am I thinking of something else?
No, I can't remember guns. I remember the last part where they start having everybody drink the cyanide. And me thinking, how cool would it have been if they played Carnage in the Temple of the Damned? What has this happened?
Yeah. I feel like I've seen it, but I can't remember. I think I'm confusing it with another movie. It's another sort of church culty movie with the guy from Righteous Gemstones, the father. I don't know if you watched that show.
John Goodman.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's
it. Yeah. The Righteous Gemstones, by the way, is fucking genius.
Yeah. Just
absolute genius.
Yeah. Me and my friends were talking about that yesterday.
What did you think of the season 2 finale?
I thought it was good, but I need to actually rewatch it. I was sort of in and out of paying attention because I actually didn't know that was the finale. I thought it was going to be 10 episodes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, they've spoken at least about this being like several seasons. I think Danny McBride has said. So my understanding is that they were going to do Righteous Gemstones straight after Eastbound and Down.
Okay.
But HBO wouldn't let them do Vice Principals, so he made a deal with them and said, "If you let me do Vice Principals, then I'll give you multiple seasons of Righteous Gemstones."
Shit. Okay, I liked Vice Principals too, and Eastbound and Down is genius.
Yeah. I'm busy. I've watched Eastbound and Down so many times, but Vice Principals to me, you can understand why they wouldn't have let them do it. I mean, frankly, I'm surprised that HBO haven't pulled it off the West Ham yet.
It's
haven't pulled it off the network.
Funny as shit though. He's a Georgia guy. Danny McBride. I think he went to high school pretty close to where I went. But yeah, that I don't know if I really like his writing on the new Halloween movies though.
I thought the Halloween requel wasn't bad.
The 2018 one? That one was good. Right. Yeah, that was cool. I really didn't like Halloween Kills though.
Yeah,
that's too much of a kill gore fest, and to me, Halloween is supposed to be slow, creeping evil.
Yeah, I would agree, and I thought about it afterwards. I was talking to my girlfriend about it, and I was saying like, you could have done something that's like a really slow build, like almost kind of what was a great sequel to me was The Exorcist 3 as a sequel to the first Exorcist movie, because it's completely different in tone, but there's all these great things connecting it.
Yeah,
I almost feel like you could have done something similar with Halloween Kills, rather than just turning it into this. I mean, it kind of in a way it felt a little bit like the series finale to Righteous Gemstones.
Yeah,
and that it's just complete carnage and but it's almost for the sake of trying to be funny or trying to, it's not scary at all.
No, it was almost like the new Texas Chainsaw or something. It was just kind of like just a kill fest, which has its time and place. But Halloween is the original Halloween is my favorite movie of all time. So,
oh really?
Yeah, I'm a tough one to crack on that. So, but I did like Halloween 2018. All right, I thought that was good. But Yeah,
See,
Halloween 1 and 2 are my favorites.
my favorite horror movie of all time is The Exorcist by far, and I know that
That's amazing.
David Gordon Green and Danny McBride are working on the
Shit, that's
reboot
right.
of that.
That's right. Yeah.
And I don't know whether I'm even gonna. I can't. I don't know whether I'm gonna bring myself to be able to watch it, because I spoke to Mike about this the other day, and I said to him, personally, I feel like an Exorcist movie without Jason Miller is not an Exorcist movie that I want to see. So they're already working at a deficit.
Yeah.
I'm terrified of whatever woke nonsense the studios are going to force them to inject into this.
Did you see the new, speaking of that, did you see the new Candyman? Fucking terrible.
Oh God.
It was terrible. So fucking bad.
It was literally like the director was reading talking points from a Democrat organized, a local Democrat like community group. It was like she directed it in such a way that it's almost like she interjects into the dialogue from time to time. It's like, hey, by the way, I just want to remind all of you of X, Y, Z. Police are bad. These people are bad. It's like, it was a train wreck.
When it's so on the nose like that, because I had watched the original Candyman before going to see it, knowing that it probably wasn't going to be good because it's Jordan Peele. And, I thought Get Out was okay, but I watched the original Candyman, and it's the same sort of thing, but the way that they do it is brilliant, and it's atmospheric, and it's not so spoon fed to you. It's something that you actually have to think about, and it's got a point to it. And this new one was just like so on the nose, so spoon fed, just utter shit. I really fucking hated it.
Well, you alluded to it earlier, but American History X is a great example of a movie that had a very powerful message at the time that it came out.
Totally.
But it's never delivered to you in a way where it's beating you over the head with a message, and then it's kind of belittling you as it shouts the message in your ear again and again. You think about TV shows like The Wire. The Wire, I think is probably the show that's had the biggest impact on my thinking about the world as far as the TV show is concerned. Not that I'm particularly influenced by TV shows, but you know what I mean. It's like it really kind of made me think about things in a very different way than I had done going into the show. But at no point does the show ever become condescending in the way that it's conveying its message. Unlike crap like the new Candyman.
Yeah, I've never seen The Wire, and I've been wanting to watch that for years. I really need to.
Going to change your life with that, mate.
Yeah.
It's very, very good.
That was sort of the first, next to Sopranos, sort of the first kind of cinematic television, right?
Yeah, it was. So it was Sopranos, The Wire, and then Mad Men. Mad Men I really like as well.
Yeah, Breaking Bad is probably my all-time favorite TV show, or one of them at least. But
Sopranos is my daughter's not my daughter's name isn't Meadow by accident.
Nice. I hate to admit I need to watch that full one too. I haven't seen it all. My friends are super into that.
Yeah. Speaking of kids, by the way, I heard what sounded like a pitbull terrier bark in the background, because we have that as well. So I know the bark.
Yeah, I saw on your Facebook you have sort of similar one. Yeah, that's Bella. She's probably out there just barking at dogs out the window. But she's about 8. I got her when she was about a year. But she's.
Did you get her as a rescue?
Yeah, I got her as a rescue foster. She was being fostered at the time, and she's my first dog. So I kind of wanted something that a dog that was house trained and living around other animals at the time, because I was living with a girl at the time who had a dog, and I needed it to get along with her dog. So, but yeah, she's awesome. She's popular on my Instagram.
Is there the same like crazy misconception in the US about pit bull terriers, about how they're murderers and killers and horrible animals and stuff like that there is?
Yeah, there can be, and I think it's sort of loosening up now. But there's some cities that ban them.
Yeah,
it's crazy. I'm probably always going to get a pet. I love them.
Yeah, no, I'll definitely say so. I grew up with we had chow chows when I was growing up, And
Nice.
then when my girlfriend and I got together, she Bailey's her dog. So that was my first proper experience with a dog like that. And I think they bought her as a Staffordshire Terrier, but I mean, without a shadow of a doubt, you can see on the photos there's ample pit bull in her. She even has. Does your dog do the noises when you rub her stomach as well? It sounds like I tease Bailey and I say it sounds like she's mooing, but it's like those,
Yeah. I feel like Staffordshire is like, because pit is a sort of mutt term. The American Pit Bull, which are the proper big ones, but Bella is staffy sort of, but to me that's just the same family as Pit Bull. It's just a smaller, they're more compact.
Yeah.
So but yeah, I think our dogs are about the same size. She's about 50 pounds.
Yeah, same here. Bailey's she weighs 26 kilos, so it's about the same.
Yeah. Is she real kind of firm and muscular?
Yeah. Very much so. And it's especially grating when she decides I'm going to jump on daddy's lap while he's sitting on the sofa, and then she stomps on my groin as hard as she, that whole fucking 26 kilo frame comes down flat on your groin, and you kind of want to shout and be angry, but then she looks at you with that face and it's like, oh, don't worry, I may be infertile after this, but
yeah, it's so hard to not give them that love for sure.
Yeah. So getting back to the band, so you guys are starting to have you started playing shows again since the pandemic?
Yeah, we did a tour with our friends from Demiser up in South Carolina. We did 16 or so dates with them, 16 or 17. And it was cool. I mean, it sort of just felt like time didn't really stop. It was the same time of year that we did the 1349 one exactly 2 years ago. And we kept making the joke that we were just still on that tour because it sort of felt the same.
Yeah.
But it was good. I mean, it was our first headlining tour. So, mixed crowds here and there, some cities smaller. And I was really surprised by Chicago and Boston being a smaller turnout. But we played Chicago on Halloween, so there's a lot of things going on that night. But Boston, our guy at our label, Gordon, says that the liberal cities in the north tend to not have as many people coming out around this time right now. And I mean, I guess I could believe it.
So Laurie Lightfoot said, I don't know whether Scott and Cloak would have voted for me, so I'd rather just ban all the people from being able to go to their show.
Yeah. So, and I after he said that, I was like, okay, I guess like looking back, I could sort of see that. But then again, St. Vitus in Brooklyn was great. It was a big turnout, and our Atlanta show was really, really good. And then everything in between was solid. So that was cool.
You need to come to the UK over here. We're acting like COVID never happened.
Really?
It's like as soon as the Prime Minister was caught partying in his fucking backyard with his colleagues during lockdown, it was like all lockdown restrictions gone. No one wears a mask. No one cares. I mean, it's short of licking the fucking lampposts. You can do whatever you want. Yeah.
How are people taking to that? Is it pretty normal?
So yeah, it is getting very normal. There's still people that walk around with masks, and when I walk around without my mask, because I mean, as soon as they said they kind of gave a date and they said restrictions are going to drop on this date. As soon as they gave the date, I was like, that's me done. Yeah, I'm not waiting for COVID to be in retreat. So fuck your date. You said it's over. It's over. I'm not wearing this crap on my face anymore.
Yeah.
So they do look at you like you're Genghis Khan reincarnate, but for the most part, people don't give a shit.
It's funny here that the store is like my Publix. It's a supermarket store we have here, and it's that'll say no mask, no service. I haven't worn one in there in probably a year, and no one says anything. So it's just sort of whatever precautions that they have to put up. Because at first it was like you get the vax and then you don't have to wear a mask. Oh, never mind, you have to do that too.
Yeah.
There's so much backtracking and backstepping, but in some ways I get it. It's a new thing, and people didn't know, but there's a lot of just fucking weird misinformation, and I stopped paying attention to it. I'm gonna just live my life how I want to.
No, I agree, and the misinformation seems designed to, what one, the way that the media amplify it just divides people, number one. But number two, what really grates me is that whenever they get caught out having made a mistake, they can never come out and admit that they were wrong.
They don't say anything. It's like having a really bad partner in a relationship or something. Like they don't say anything. It's or say, okay, we were wrong on this. This is actually how it might be. So I stopped fucking paying attention to it.
Yeah. Well, it's weapons grade gaslighting.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been doing that not just with COVID, but they do it politically, and they will do it. I mean, sometimes I do feel like the tide is going to turn at some point, because I look back at history and I say, well, Jimmy Carter was president in the late 1970s, and it was a complete fucking disaster for America. Inflation was sky high. The guy was a complete moron. And then people voted in Reagan, and then Reagan stood for a second term against Walter Mondale, beat Walter Mondale for the highest majority that the Republicans have ever gotten. But I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm overtly pro-Republican, either. I'm pro certain people. I like Rand Paul. I think Ron DeSantis is a good guy. Like there are certain people that I think are good, but then equally, I also think the system is so broken. It doesn't matter who you stick in there. They're going to get wrapped up by whatever bureaucracy and bullshit, and like blockers there are to them being able to achieve anything worthwhile. Yeah. And I mean, you can just imagine, say DeSantis stands and wins in 2024. I mean, he's going to be in league with Putin, and I mean, Christ knows what fucking nonsense they'll fabricate, which will then become the next 4-year news cycle.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. The 4-year news cycle. To be honest, you probably know more about American politics than I do at this point. I've been just out of it for a while, especially within the last 4 or 5 years here. It's just gotten so fucking ridiculous. Like Katie said on her podcast with you, I'm pretty politically homeless. I have different views that match this and that, but I grew up a punk kid, so I was certainly very liberal minded, and I look back at a lot of things and I'm just like, yeah, that's not how that works. The world isn't that black and white. People are nuanced. There's gray areas everywhere. And at this point, I'm more of a spiritual person than I am a political person. So I just try to think on those terms and what's going to empower me as a person and the people around me. And that's all I can really do.
Yeah. I mean, I tend to be very down the line when it comes to what works and what doesn't work. For me, like outcome is what determines what works and what doesn't work, right? So you can have all of your crazy fucking utopian ideals about green energy, for example. And as much as I might 100% agree with you that we need to take care of the environment, for me, deforestation and cleaning up the oceans, I think those are two things that are critically important that we need to pay attention to.
Definitely.
But then you look at the way that how headlong they rush into it, and you could very easily make an argument, and I do, that Putin's attack on the Ukraine, he was empowered by these moronic green energy deals, basically, because because of the fact that Germany shut down all of their, or were in the process of shutting down all of their coal and nuclear power plants, they effectively made themselves dependent on Russian natural gas and oil. And so therefore, Putin is, one, is being enriched. Secondly, knows that he has leverage over Germany. In the meantime, Biden is shutting down pipelines and shutting down any sort of fracking and things like that in the US. So US goes from being oil independent to now suddenly having to import oil again. So again, they create a degree of dependence and leverage that Putin now has over the states, because even these sanctions that they've just rolled out now, they don't include buying natural gas and oil from Russia, and that's what they make most of their money from.
Right.
So it's just sheer political incompetence that's created this situation, or that has kind of created the soil for this situation to occur. Because I saw an interview recently with a guy named Niall Ferguson, who I really like. And he made a very good point. He said, like, why are people surprised at what Putin's doing? Putin's always been Putin. He was just waiting for the right opportunity to do what he's done. Yeah. But so for me, like when I look at policy and things like that, it's always to me about outcome. What do the numbers say the outcome is? If the outcome is beneficial for a greater number of people, then that's the outcome that I agree with. If it is worse for a greater number of people, then I'm opposed to that outcome. It just so happens that, in my opinion, statistically, the outcome generally does not tend to favor the Democrats. If I were a voting American, which I'm obviously not, but it just doesn't tend to favor, Democrat ideals and Democrat policies, especially not the policies of fucking morons like AOC.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. And I think a lot of that now is just a sort of Twitter war with people like her and these quote unquote politicians. And it's pretty embarrassing. If social media has been, ruined anything, it's politics. I mean,
yeah.
So bad.
Well, I mean, money ruined politics, and all of the rot and the toxic bullshit that went into politics just got amplified by social media.
For sure. And it's people, younger than me claiming they know everything by reading something that she posted or a meme or an infographic, not a meme, but an infographic, and thinking that's it. That's what I'm going to believe now. And it's just like, it's not that easy. And especially for someone like you who you're not just thinking about you have a daughter. So you have to really think locally for a lot of the schools.
Yeah.
And, she's part of that kind of public government program at this point.
Yeah, no, I check on that pretty carefully, but I mean, again, I'm no point in even hiding it. She lives in a very small village with her mom. She goes to a St. Mary's Christian school. So they don't teach her anything there that I mean, I would much rather that. I can deprogram the Christianity, but I would much rather that than having to try and explain to her about genders and stuff like that when she's 7 years old. So it's just not, for me, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
I think that I think there's conversations that should be had at home, and there's conversations that should be had at school. And for me,
100%, I wouldn't want teachers talking. If I have kids, I wouldn't want them talking to them about certain things. Like that's the parents' deal.
And the thing is, again, this sort of, you and I saying this now would be frowned upon in certain circles. When I was young, there was no discussion about it. Like you didn't talk about those things as a teacher to kids. It just wouldn't happen. That was a conversation your parents had with you.
Yeah, you'd probably be fired back then. It's common sense. Like it's just, I don't want a stranger talking about to kids about that.
we had a teacher who talked about that a little too much to one of the older girls. I think she was about 16, 17. She fell pregnant and he got fired because it was his kid.
Oh, seriously?
Oh, dude, we had all sorts of scandals at my schools.
Wow.
I want to talk to you very quickly about the new album just before we go, because that piqued my interest earlier, and I've kind of in the back of my mind, I'm kind of thinking I needed to ask you about that. But you said it's a more detail-orientated record than the last one. Can you kind of expand on that?
Well, we demoed heavily for it. This is sort of my home studio room, and I just had all the time to really put in everything into these demos before we went in. And that's how we wrote it. It was a lot of a demoing process and then taking it to the practice space and fleshing it out and then coming back and adding what we added to the demos. There's a lot more ambient orchestral and choir tracks mixed in throughout. There was so many guitar. We're done tracking it now. I finished the vocals about 2 weeks ago. But there's just so many layers of guitars and so many layers of vocals. And it's probably stuff that the average listener is not going to pick up on, but if it wasn't there, they would maybe notice. But to us, seeing the tracks, there's just a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of transitional things in it. It's much more of a black metal oriented record. I think we've always had that, that backbone, but it's way more prominent. There's more blast, there's more double bass and more tremolo speed picking. My vocals are a lot more harsh. They're still in the same range, but they're a lot more aggressive. It's by far, I think, our best material. We've come into ourselves more on it. It's definitely my favorite record.
And so now I assume you're in that waiting game of.
Well, we're mixing it. Yeah.
Okay, you're still busy mixing, so you're not in the vinyl production queue yet.
No, and unfortunately, I think it's not going to come out until 2023 because of that. Because of just how backed up the plants are, which is fucking terrible and excruciating for me because we started this process of recording in August. And we had to, first of all, it's just a long recording process. And then second of all, there were a lot of breaks because we did the tour, and then there were holidays and people were traveling, and then, you know, different people in the queue at the studio, and we had to work around that. And it was, you know, a bit frustrating, but it was all in all a 6-month process. But if you actually condensed it all, it was probably 3.5, 4 months of actual tracking, probably 3.5 or something, which is still a long time. You know, if you were to do that consistently. But you know, we learned things that we don't want to do next time on the next record, and maybe make it a little more of a concise period of tracking, because it was a little too long for us to be tracking it. But I think it's going to pay off. I really do. And I'm, you know, I have the artwork that we're working on now, and we just actually last night we just took the promo pictures for it, and they came out pretty incredible. So there's a lot more work being put into it, and I'm really, really excited for this one.
And anything else that's in the that's in the near future for the band?
Well, we're doing a tour with Tombs in April, and then we're doing just a small tour with Acid Witch in May, and we have some summer plans as well. We're trying to work on something right now that we're trying to get on that's going to be really short notice if we do, but I don't know if it's going to happen or not. But if it does, it'd be a really, really good opportunity. And if it does happen, people will know about it probably this week. So
yeah, and big shout out to my brother Mike. That Tombs tour will be fucking awesome.
Yeah, that should be good. That's a short one too. It's like 6 days or something, but it'll be cool.
Yeah. Do you know Mike?
I've never met him personally. No.
You'll get on fucking brilliantly with him. He's an awesome dude. Same type of guy as what we are.
Cool. Yeah, I listened to his podcast a couple times. So
yeah,
they're managed by the same manager. So
yeah, also massively into horror movies and
he
that
is.
Sort of thing.
I noticed that from the podcast.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, dude, I think Katie was correct. It was a fucking great conversation.
Yeah,
great talking to you, and we'll definitely have to do this again at some point down the line. And I'm super excited about hearing the new music.
Yeah, I think you'll like it a lot. Knowing your taste, I think it'll probably be your favorite one out of the stuff that we've done for sure. So maybe when that's out, we could have another conversation. Well,
anytime, man. You know, we probably spent about 10 minutes talking about Cloak in a hour and 15-minute conversations. I often feel bad when I have bands on, and it's like, they're there to talk about the new album, and about right at the back end of the conversation, I'm like, oh fuck, we could 5 minutes. Let's quickly talk about this.
Yeah, totally.
So,
yeah,
but now you're welcome anytime, man. Like I said, great talking to you, and hopefully we bump into each other in person at some point down the road.
For sure. Yeah, let me know if you're ever in the South for some reason, or maybe we'll run into each other on tour. We're gonna get to Europe eventually, so.
Well, when that happens, we'll definitely have to meet up.
Yeah, definitely. Good talking, man.
All right, dude. Take care of yourself.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
On Poison Ground is the song, the record is The Burning Dawn, and it was dropped in 2019 on Season of Mist by Cloak. Thank you so much to Scott for coming on the podcast. Great dude. I had a super fun time speaking to him, and this is hopefully not going to be his last time on the podcast. So if you guys enjoyed that, plenty more to come. If everything goes to plan and schedule, then I am about to go on one of the biggest tears as far as guests are concerned that this podcast has ever seen. So I'm not going to say any more because, as you know, I am very paranoid and I'm deathly afraid that whatever I tell you guys will happen will automatically be cancelled. But I've got quite a few things in the diary, and I can just say this. If you've been liking what you've heard on the last 120 episodes, you are going to love what is coming up. Let's talk now about Dark Funeral and the album We Are the Apocalypse. It is the 7th in the Dark Funeral canon. It's available right now on Century Media Records. I have very famously always said that I don't like Dark Funeral's music. I discovered them way back when The Secrets of the Black Arts, their first record, came out in 1996. And for me, it was, and if the band listened to this, I apologize in advance. My words get a little more complimentary as we go along. But, initially when I heard them, I kind of wrote them off as an imitation of Immortal. And perhaps it's because I was a young blood, didn't know any better. But over the years, I've just never really warmed to this band in the way that some others have. And I mean, there are a lot of Dark Funeral fans, and there's a lot of people that, absolutely worship the ground upon which this band floats. But that being said, as We Are the Apocalypse was gearing up to be released, their first record since 2016's Where Shadows Reign, I must admit I wasn't particularly excited, but once I actually started paying some attention to some of the material that's on here, I've got to say, I think that these guys may well not have necessarily turned me into a full-blown fan. But they've certainly done enough to keep me interested or to keep me coming back for a couple more listens than just a kind of cursory spin. So We Are the Apocalypse, as I said, is the 7th record in their canon. It's really the only record, or they now only have one remaining member from the band's founding some nearly 30 years ago now. Lord Araman on guitar. That being said, what you will hear does not sound a million miles away from anything else that you've heard by the band. The album starts off with a great track called Nightfall that kind of sets the scene perfectly. It has a great chorus, very, very catchy, very riff-orientated, very atmospheric. Before going into a somewhat slower Let the Devil In. Interesting placement of this track because it feels to me like it should have sort of, or actually, like it would have been a track better suited towards the end of the record. And I'm going to explain why I said that in a second. But very good song. Again, kind of catching Dark Funeral in a mood and creating a vibe that I quite like, which is a bit slowed down, a little more precisely executed than I've been used to Dark Funeral doing, and generally speaking, very, very good. Then we kind of moved into standard Dark Funeral fare with When Our Vengeance Is Done and Nosferatu, both tracks that are serviceable, but that don't really do a huge amount for me. I think of the two, Nosferatu is probably my favorite, and that's by virtue of the fact that Heljarmader, the vocalist's voice sounds absolutely fucking shredding on that track. But then it immediately vindicates, whatever monotony might have come before with When I'm Gone, which again I think might be one of the best songs that Dark Funeral have ever produced. It's certainly one of the highlights on the record. And that seems to kind of be the ebb and flow of this album. There are 2-3 great songs followed by 2-3 songs that aren't bad, but they just kind of seem to blend into each other. My favorite track is still the single that I spoke about on last week's News, Rants and Reacts segment, Leviathan, because I really think this is where the band's strengths shine more so than any else. I think the riff is great. I think the fact that they start off slow and kind of have these blasts, but only in very kind of deliberate sections of the song, I think works very, very well. I would have just loved for this record to finish a little stronger than it did, and I feel like the title track, We Are the Apocalypse, is a good song, but it kind of feels like, even though the album is 43 minutes long, it kind of feels like there was something else needed to really kind of cap things, which is what made me think, that Let the Devil In should have been a track sequenced maybe a little bit later on in the album's running order. That being said, I fully concede that not a lot of people listen to records end to end anymore and probably don't pay as much attention to sequencing as I do. Besides which, I am being completely and utterly pedantic because this is a good album. And if it turned a dusty old fart and a cynic like me, then I can only imagine how Dark Funeral fans must be feeling about this album. And I know just from some of the initial feedback I've had from folks on social media about this, you guys are absolutely loving it, and I don't think that you were wrong. Let us go into a track right now, and I did mention this being my favorite track of the album, so without further ado, here is Dark Funeral with Leviathan. That was Leviathan by Dark Funeral. The record is called We Are the Apocalypse. It's available right now on Century Media. And like I said, as someone who's not a Dark Funeral fan, I think that's great. And so I can only imagine how you feel about this record if you count yourself amongst their legions of fans. But anyway, let's now talk about Hell Militia and their new record, Hollow Void. It is out on Season of Mist. It came out this weekend. These guys have been around since 2001, I believe. This is their first record in 10 years, the last being Jacob's Ladder, which came out in 2012. The band described themselves as necro black metal, and when you listen to Hollow Void for about 2 minutes, you're probably going to realize why. This is kind of where Dark Funeral is a lot more crisp, clean, and precise. This is filthy, nasty, violent, not maybe lo-fi, but certainly mid-fi in terms of its production. And I absolutely fucking love it. There have been some lineup changes since Jacob's Ladder, specifically the new vocalist, RSDX. They also have a new bass player and a new guitarist in Saroth. I believe the bass player refers to himself cunningly as S. And so it shouldn't come as a surprise that as much as I think Jacob's Ladder was actually a pretty good record, it does sound quite different to Hollow Void. Hollow Void, by contrast, is way angrier, a bit more raw. I think RSDX's voice is much, much better than his predecessor, which was Meinhach, I believe was his name. Similar kind of style. He's still delivering his voice through, what sounds like about 10 distortion pedals. But it's much raspier, it's much more aggressive, and it also sounds better enunciated. The record starts off really strong with Lifeless Light and Genesis Undone before kind of going into where I think Hell Militia really shine, which is kind of this mid-tempo gallop, almost slight black and roll influence. They do it later on again on a track called Kingdom Scorched. But really, whether these guys are speeding it up, whether they are slowing it down to, kind of build up the atmosphere, they are on point from start to finish. There's another track on here that reminds me a little bit of older Glory or Belly circa CS, I think it's called Meet Us at the Southern Sign. Is the record, that kind of vibe, the song being Veneration. But really, I think this record kind of builds up, in contrast to the Dark Funeral album, it builds up to a real peak in that Kingdom Scorched, Veneration, and Corruption Rejoice trilogy that kind of closes off the record. But absolutely fucking awesome to have these guys back, especially coming back on a record that is this strong. And I am telling you this right now, if you're a fan of any of the music that I play on this podcast that is remotely black metal, you have to check out this album. It is fantastic. I'm going to play a track right now. This is called Dust of Time. Dust of Time by Hell Militia off the record Hollow Void. I think I should start having a special kind of award for albums like these. And I've mentioned before that back when I was ordering stuff off or out of Nuclear Blast catalogs, I think it was Osmos Productions who used to have a big banner at the top of all their ads that said "Not for Pussies." I think that I should have a Not for Pussies award to the most badass, grimmest sounding black metal there is. And if that was so, if I made that official, then Hell Militia would most definitely be the recipients of one. This is Not for Pussies indeed. Right, folks, now we are going to whisk ourselves away magically to my favorite metal website, Metal Storm. First headline we see, Ashen Horde, new album title and cover art disclosed. I had Trevor of Ashen Horde on the podcast 2 episodes ago, so if you haven't checked out the episode that he and I did together, then make sure that you do. It says here, progressive black metal duo from California, Ashen Horde, unveils cover artwork of their forthcoming album, Antimony. Anti-Money. It was created by Nicholas Sundin. The successor to 2019's Fallen Cathedrals will be out later this year through Transcending Obscurity Records. For a preview, you can give a spin to the song The Throes of Agony. Let's check it out. What I quite like about this is there's definitely, a lot of progressive leanings here, but one thing that Trevor doesn't get away from when it comes to writing music is he kind of retains a lot of that aggression that I like in black metal. So rather than it being, total fucking organs and yes worship nonsense, it's clearly a black metal band. There's just maybe a couple of more obscure avant-garde influences tossed in for good measure. I like that change as well. I like the riff that comes in, that sort of hit around that 1 minute mark where the song clearly sort of takes a slightly different tone. And by the way, I also like Trevor's voice. I think Trevor's the vocalist on here, but he does a great job. I will for sure be looking forward to that Ashen Horde record. And like I said, he was on to talk about his other band, Aboria, 2 episodes ago. Great episode, and he is a fucking badass guy. So I would definitely suggest that you check out that episode if you haven't done already. Let's carry on. Overkill, no new album until 2023. Hurrah. Decapitated Detail, 8th full-length installment. I was a massive, massive fan of Carnivals Forever. I actually thought Carnivals Forever was possibly one of the best Decapitated albums ever. It was actually for quite a while. It was one of my favorite death metal records ever, even though I don't really think, in fairness, that you can you can even call them what's the name? You can even call them death metal really anymore. That being said, I like the follow-up to Carnivals Forever, and I can't remember the album name off the top of my head now. I do, however, remember the album name of the muck they released after, which was Anti-Cult. I mean, they just totally lost me on that record. I just didn't like it. I couldn't get my head around what they were trying to do. It sounded to me like they were trying to sort of go from being Decapitated, the badass death metal band with Meshuggah influences, to Decapitated meets Pantera, Pantcapitated. Yeah, it just didn't really do anything for me. So I'm hoping that on this record they can restore my my faith, my love in this band, because I've always liked them. You know, all the way back to the Negation and all of the old stuff. Anyway, it says here, long-running tech death metal machinery Decapitated unveil details in connection with their next full-length release entitled Cancer Culture. Due out on May 27th via Nuclear Blast Records, it was engineered by Tomas Z. Zalewski. David Castillo was responsible for mixing, and Ted Jensen for the final touch for mastering. The polls will also present the album's first single title track. Whoever wrote that news release needs to fucking lay off the crack. Anyways, it says here about the first single. It wasn't easy to pick the first single from Cancer Culture. Each song has this different vibe that we would like to show as soon as possible and be proud of. Since the Cancer Culture is the first song from the album, we decided that this would be the perfect way to introduce you to new music. It is the album's opening chapter, and you know what you can expect. I think the album cover is fucking awesome. I really like the look of that. And I would assume Cancer Culture is a reference to what these guys went through after they had some accusations hurled at them following some shenanigans on a tour bus. I mean, obviously they've been acquitted of that. It'd be interesting to find out a bit more about what went on and what the aftermath of all of that was. I never really paid much attention to it while it was happening. But either way, I'm going to shut up. Let's listen to Cancer Culture. I like that keyboard that's coming into the background. You know, it's I wouldn't say it's like an industrial melody, but it adds something a little spacey and a little just a little different to what I've heard from them before. The riff sounds, you know, typical Decapitated, not in a bad way, but yeah, so far so good. I was ready to write off that song as, you know, kind of interesting idea at the start, boring for the rest of it, until that bit kicked in there. I think it was about the 56-second mark, you know, with just sort of the single string picking. That sounds fantastic. And it really elevates what is a, you know, fairly ordinary, average verse that precedes it to something a lot bigger. And I do like that style of songwriting. I think that Satyr might have mentioned this back when Satyricon was still worth something. You know, that sometimes you write these things that are very basic, you know, and sound very predictable, and you almost do it so that it juxtaposes nicely against the, you know, the big moment, the, you know, that oh my fuck moment that you're about to bring in. But I like that. I think that sounds cool. There's something about it. If I had to describe it, I would say it sounds to me like this is a halfway house between Anti-Cult and Carnivals Forever. and the Carnival is Forever elements are what's making me want to hear the rest of the record. The anti-cult elements are what would put me off listening to it. And the thing about Anti-Cult is one of those records that I bet if I'd heard it 15 years ago, I would have told you it is absolutely sensational. The problem with it is, particularly in death metal and black metal, but death metal, I would say, especially in the last couple of years, the bar is raised so extraordinarily high by bands like Cattle Decapitation, Ulcerate, Immolation. It's very difficult, I think, to put out just a bog standard death metal record and expect people to get down with it. Anyway, let's listen to another 30 seconds or so. Yeah, not bad. Again, also added to that huge May release schedule. I'm surprised that they seem to have not really had much of a build-up. I mean, a lot of bands have kind of been talking about their records. If it's coming out in May, they would have been talking about it a month ago or maybe 6 weeks or so ago. This one sort of just seemed to jump up out of nowhere. But either way, I'll look forward to hearing it. Let's move on to the next page and see if there's anything there. So far, so nothing. Exodus unveil new video. By the way, I was going through my likes and dislikes on YouTube for episodes, for different episodes. And generally speaking, I've been very lucky. Most episodes I get 100% for. Sometimes if I'm going to talk about some political stuff, you'll get a couple of folks that maybe have a gut reaction and go, dislike, how dare he say those things. But very weirdly, for Jack Gibson, I got my highest number of dislikes on that I've had for a single episode. I don't know why. It was still the vast majority of it was likes. And not that I spend my days weeping myself to sleep about it, but I was surprised because I really enjoyed that episode, and I thought that Jack was a fucking great guest. Now I've mentioned this a couple of times now, and I also said about May many times being absolutely nuts. But Blut Aus Nord return with 7 mesmerizing tracks of bleakly maximalist harmonic unease. Disharmonium Undreamable Abysses full-length offering will be released on May the 20th via Debo Morty Productions. Alongside unveiled details, you can also give a spin to the first preview tune, That Cannot Be Dreamed. Let's give this a crack, although I happen to know when it comes to Blut Aus Nord, very often you kind of have to listen through the whole entire song to get what they're actually doing, and for all of it to make sense. But let's see if we can at least give ourselves a whiff of what this sounds like. Holy shit. Fucking hell. That is something else. It sounds so unique, and there's just it's like the first Blut Aus Nord song, or a song that I can recall, and I might be totally wrong on this, but it's the first Blut Aus Nord song I can recall that actually has kind of a real swagger and a real groove to it. But it certainly sounds a lot darker than the last record. And I consciously didn't really listen to the song because I wanted to be able to give my initial opinion on it. When I sent it to Marco just to say to him, "Oh, there's a new Blut Aus Nord song out," he came back and said it sounds like the work that transforms God Part 2. I'll need to go back to that album and revisit it, but it sounds to me like it has elements of that, but kind of with a modern spin, which is, I mean, fantastic. But yeah, that first minute was was fucking incredible. I love the wailing voices in the background there as well. I mean, this is like being sucked down into the vortex of the of the apocalypse, and there's nothing you can do about it. This is probably gonna be one I'm gonna need to listen to properly, and maybe I'll talk about it again on an upcoming episode. But and I will certainly be talking about the album. But that is fucking fantastic, absolutely fantastic. Honestly, there's some days where I genuinely feel fortunate to be living in a time where, yes, we've got the threat of nuclear war and we got all sorts of fucked up stuff going on. But when you think about how cool some of the things are that we get to experience, and not just music, but let's stay with music. Every single year, the bar for what is good in extreme and heavy music just gets raised over and over again. And I'm not going to go on another rant about all the dusty old farts that talk about how black metal has lost its spirit. But I mean, honestly, I've got my Dark Throne T-shirt on. There's Dark Throne records that I like. The newer stuff, not so much. But honestly, as a band like Dark Throne put out anything that sounds that fucking dark and grim in the last 15 years, the answer is no. But again, I count myself lucky that I'm in a place where, having grown up with this music, I can grow along with the music and be challenged by it continually. And I was telling a friend of mine the other day, it's one of the few things in my life that, as I'm, horning on to 42 years of age, it's still one of the things that fills me with the same level of excitement that it filled me with when I first heard it, or when I first got into this music. That song is a great example. I feel exactly like I felt as a 12-year-old during Painkiller for the first time. Phenomenal, absolutely fucking phenomenal. Can't wait to hear the rest of that record. Let's move on. Woefat lineup changes. I've never heard of a band called Woefat. But anyway, probably best left untouched, that one. Let's go on. Sadistic Ritual unveil new single and visualizer. Let's check this out. And then I may swing by... In fact, actually, no. There seems like there's still a fair few other things to look at. So let's check out Sadistic Ritual. It says here, to taste another piece of the upcoming The Enigma Boundless album, out on May the 20th. The Georgia-based Thrashers Sadistic Ritual premiere a visualizer for the second single called Murmur. I'm kind of waiting for the vocals to come in, because for me, the vocals are going to make or break the song. So far, it sounds all right. I mean, it certainly sounds, as far as thrash is concerned, it sounds 1,000 times better than that Shambles that was the last Creator song. But when you have these throwback thrash bands, I tend to kind of like them more in the power trip vein, like that slightly old school crossover style, as opposed to something that's sort of more traditional thrash. But let's hear when the vocals kick in. Then I'll be able to give my verdict. Undecided. It sounds like it's got the makings of something cool, and the vocals remind me a little bit of KK from Destroyer 666. But yeah, like I said, undecided. I'd like to hear the rest of the record before I decide for sure what I think of it. All right, let's see. Aura to release next full length in May. Share details and first single. Swiss atmospheric black metal formation Aura announced the release of Triad 2 Hemera album, the second part of the Melmoth trilogy, on May the 13th via Deborah Morty Productions. The album was recorded, mixed, and mastered in the Chower Studios barn by Johnny Warren. As a first glimpse into their new work of art, Aura unveiled the song Das Dunkel der Welt. Let's check this out. I have never heard of Aura before, and I've not really ever listened to their music much, but as I've said before, Deborah Morty, instant listen as far as I'm concerned. Very vintage black metal, this, but I quite like it. I think so far so good. I think I like that riff. I think the tremolo picking, I always have felt that that's a little bit hackneyed unless it's done really, really well. And I've heard bands that do it very well, but I've also heard a lot of bands do it. So you kind of need to do something a bit special for it to be, I think, for it to work. But I like what I've heard, and the production's good. I think those drums in particular sound very, very good. I don't like the vocal production very much, though. On the way it's coming through on these headphones, it sounds like the guy stuck his head in a fucking washing machine, put it on the spin cycle, and went, hit record. I mean, the rest of it doesn't sound bad. I think like I said, the drum production isn't bad, but those blasts are, again, a little on the monotonous side. Like, I feel like they could just be a little more by way of fills, rolls, just something to break it up. I'll listen to that, but again, I'm undecided. I don't know whether that's going to be my vibe or not. It's not it's not grabbing me the way. I mean, that maybe I should probably just stop listening to anything else after I heard that Blut Aus Nord track, because that is fucking incredible. And I think almost everything else is going to sound disappointing in comparison to it. But anyways, let's see what else there is. I'm going to take probably one more off of Metal Storm, and then we will move on. So let's talk about this. Deathspell Omega, new album coming out next week. They've kind of taken a leaf out of Mortis of Funeral Winds' book here, and literally just dropped something and said, there you go, we're putting out a new record in 2 weeks' time. The article here reads, Stand witness to the long defeat, hearken to the first emanation of the third era of Deathspell Omega. 44 minutes of black metal enacted through 5 installments, recorded live by the French power trio in July 2021. The long defeat unfolds over 3 parallel storylines told via 3 different mediums, 2 in writing, the lyrics as well as a fable. The third speaks through the artwork, 2 meters worth of maniacally detailed visions depicting the same premise its written content draws from. All 3 are fundamentally entwined but diverging in narrative, but each contemplating or contradicting the others. No new music, but I can tell you what, I am fucking excited. I love Deathspell Omega, and I cannot wait for that new record to be released. Again, like I said, May is going to be a fucking crazy month. I'm also going to go see Mayhem in May, and I'm also going to the Munich high-end hi-fi show. Okay, let's head over to the Democrats' Guide to Rock Music and see if there's anything worth making fun of. Danny Elfman and Trent Reznor join forces for new version of Native Intelligence. Musical icons Danny Elfman and Trent Reznor, he of Nine Inch Nails fame, have joined forces for a brand new version of Native Intelligence, the duo's second collaborative reimagining of music from Elfman's ambitious double album Big Mess, featuring lead vocal from Reznor and backing vocals from Elfman that soar over a precise syncopated orchestral arrangement, and so the article goes on. I really like Trent Reznor. I've seen Nine Inch Nails many times. I am always absolutely blown away, both by the band and just by Trent Reznor's songwriting ability. I know it's not Necro, but I don't give a shit. I think the guy's fucking incredible. If you listen to any of the scores that he's written as well, the score that he wrote for The Social Network, as an example, is like a whole separate character in the movie. And I think without that score, the movie could potentially have been pretty dull. But yeah, great stuff. Kid Rock, I am uncancelable. Outspoken conservative rocker Kid Rock recently sat down with Fox News host Tucker Carlson for a rare one-on-one interview. Kid Rock is also unlistenable. And the other thing that I do find funny is you can bet, as soon as he said that on Tucker Carlson, the many fucking idiots from Media Watch and all these little watchdog groups that are trying their very best to get Tucker pulled off air, they probably immediately started trawling his social media. To arms, everyone. Look and see whether he ever used a bad word or said something unseemly about a woman. The Haunted singer Peter Dolving has persistently tried to make peace with his former bandmates. He looks a little bit on that photo like Charles Manson when he got his head shaved. I do really like Dolving's vocals, but I have always found him to be incredibly... I'm going to choose my words carefully, but the word insipid comes to mind. And he's another one of those people that writes these lengthy fucking essays about his feelings and life, and you kind of look at it and you go, no one gives a fuck, mate. So am I surprised that his bandmates no longer wants to sleep or not sleep with him, speak to him? I don't know. I don't think they want to sleep with him either. Meshuggah's Thomas Harker always counts steps while walking up staircases. I mean, to be able to play the drums he does, I'm not surprised. The guy is on a fucking different level. Aaron Lewis questions America's support for the Ukraine. Maybe we should listen to what Vladimir Putin is saying. that's insane nonsense. But it does bring to mind something I've been observing and thinking about recently. And I'm not going to talk about this too much because I will, in the next couple of weeks, have a guest on, and he's been on the podcast before, so you can probably guess who he is. But he and I will be having us probably a 3-hour conversation, of which I can see 20 minutes or so being music and the rest of it being geopolitics. So you can, by me saying that word, you could probably guess who I'm talking about. But one observation that I was going to make is that there are when people have been gaslit on an industrial scale, the way that the human race and particularly the population in the West has been done over the last kind of 5-6 years, it shouldn't come as any surprise to people that folks are going off the deep end with all sorts of crazy conspiracy theories. That conspiracy theories are actually gaining in traction. I wouldn't say in popularity, but it's almost like folks are running around trying to find the conspiracies now rather than the conspiracies finding them, if that makes sense. And I really do believe that is due to the fact that mainstream media and social media has gaslit people to a point now where, most of them are, by design, going to question every single thing that gets said to them, by CNN, by Fox, by anything that they see on social media. And I don't necessarily always know whether that's a good thing, because in some cases it's going to lead to crazy nonsense, like maybe we should listen to what Vladimir Putin is saying. Great examples of the gaslighting. We'll start with a couple of non-partisan examples. Example one, Katie mentioned this on episode 89 when she was here. She was she mentioned that her, she was having like way worse menstruation cramps and cycles and whatnot. And this was echoed by a lot of other women on social media. Articles abounded saying that it's a lie, it's an anti-vax conspiracy, and it's nonsense. Then 7-8 months later, the articles start coming out, and now all of a sudden it's, the headlines read something to the effect of, yes, it's real, but you should take the vaccination anyway because it's worth it. So people were lied to. With the vaccination, we were told that the disease stops with you, I think was the direct quote from Fauci. A couple of months later, no, the disease doesn't stop with you. You can still get it, but you should still take it because it's going to prevent hospitalization or death. Then loads of people started dying from the vaccine, and on we go. If we take it into the political realm, and I personally think this issue as an example cuts across both party lines, and I'll explain why in a second. The Hunter Biden laptop. In October 2020, the New York Post got booted off of Twitter for a month because they dared run a story about the Hunter Biden laptop. And then for the last kind of 18 months, that's been spoken of as conspiracy theory, bullshit. Only crazy people would think that it was even a thing. Obviously, very famously, they had those 50 people from the intelligence community who came and said it's definitely Russian misinformation. And then lo and behold, this weekend, and this is a direct quote straight out of the New York Times, there's a piece in probably paragraph 29 of an article about Hunter Biden's, or the investigation into Hunter Biden's taxes. It says here, those emails were obtained by the New York Times from a cache of files that appears to have come from a laptop abandoned by Mr. Biden in a Delaware repair shop. The email and others in the cache were authenticated by people familiar with them and with the investigation. So tacitly they're saying, the laptop was a thing. Yes, we lied to you, but we did it for a good cause. Now, why I say this cuts across both party lines is, if you are on, if you're a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat and you're on the left, and you want your fellow man to believe that the election was real and legit, surely you would expect to see more from your side of the fence, or you would expect a better standard from your side of the fence. Like, why must everything that they do be done in such a way that questions linger when it's done? If you guys follow what I'm saying, on the other side of the fence, again, I can completely understand why a probably not a particularly intellectual, smart man like Aaron Lewis might look at the Hunter Biden laptop scenario and go, well, they lie to me about that. What else are they lying to me about? And therein lies this great dysfunction that we see in the world. I mean, we're being gaslit about the Ukraine right now. I 100% believe that Russia was wrong to invade the Ukraine. I think it's an ideological decision on Vladimir Putin's part. I think partly also he didn't want missiles in Kiev. Kiev is, from my understanding, 300 miles away from Moscow. His response is, probably a little bit crazy, but at the same time, he probably sees the world in a somewhat different light to all of us, and he's also a dictator. One of the things that historically has always been true of dictators is that they surround themselves with yes men and yes women. In his case, probably only yes men, therefore, nothing that they say ever gets questioned. But that being said, we're told to believe that Vladimir Zelensky is the Messiah made manifest, and that is simply not true. He has had a storied history of corruption. As a matter of fact, and I looked this up because, believe it or not, I was actually thinking about talking about this at some point over the course of this week's episode. But again, I want to quote this so I don't get it wrong. But long story short, when it comes to corruption in the Ukraine, bear in mind Zelensky took office in 2019. According to Transparency International's Corruption Perception Index, a scale of least to most corrupt nations, the Ukraine ranked 122nd out of 180 countries in 2021, the second most corrupt in Europe ahead of Russia. So 2 years after Zelensky took power, that came out. Clearly there was some flim-flam going on there. Obviously there's the Burisma scandal to which Hunter Biden is tied as well. So, yes, I think, is he doing the right thing by standing with his people and, visiting folks in the hospital and whatnot? Absolutely. But people act as though it's this massively heroic thing that he's doing by not, by being there with Ukraine. It's his country. Where's he going to go? It's not like he's going to flee. I will say this as well. A lot of what I see video-wise with him seems to be done against a green screen. It always seems to kind of be on the front lines, but a lot of the stuff that I see seems about as superimposed as you see me against this backdrop if you're watching this on YouTube. So, it comes back to what I said before. I certainly hope for the sake of the Ukrainian people that this ends with as little bloodshed as possible, or certainly no as little further bloodshed as possible, I should say. It is already a complete and utter catastrophe there. But all of this stuff just reminds me once again why I think it's so important to, in this day and age, live your life in a principled manner, and look at everything that's being presented to you by social media, by the mainstream media, through the lens of principle. Because that's the only way, in my view, that you're able to separate the bullshit from, that which is actually true. Once in a while, CNN is going to get something right. Once in a while, Fox News might even get something right. But for the most part, those people are all in the business of hawking a load of crap. And I would say to you, from my own experience, the best place to find out what's going on in the world is look at the people who are making decisions that don't factor in trivial nonsense like Leah Thomas winning a fucking swimming meet in the NCAA, Joe Rogan making millions on Spotify or making millions by himself, that sort of thing. Eugene Robinson of Oxbow was on Everything Went Black a couple of weeks ago, and he made a very good point, and Mike agreed with him, and I think they hit the nail on the head with this. The people that really impact and make decisions around how, that affect this world and what happens to all of us, they're not spending their time thinking about crap like that. So from my perspective, if you want to know what's really going on in the world, make sure you're following them on social media, or make sure you watch interviews with them, or you read their stuff, because if you study that carefully, you're going to get a far better picture of what's going on in this world. And good examples: Carl Bass, Ray Dalio. I've mentioned Peter Zion's books many, many times. Peter Zion has been doing some excellent commentary and analysis on the Ukrainian conflict. I mean, the stuff he's saying about what could potentially happen to the price of oil will fucking blow your mind. It will also depress you terribly if you're that way inclined. George Friedman is fantastic. So these are the sorts of people that can look through things with a reasonably unbiased lens and give you a view on exactly what's happening. And it's not going to be prone to the hyperbole and the fucking hysterics and all the other nonsense, because that's just noise. It's just fluff. Doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things. Like I said, someone like Kyle Bass is not spending his days thinking, I wonder what Pete Davidson said to Kanye West about what he and Kim are getting up to. By the way, how the fuck can any woman in her right mind date an estrogen-laced weasel like Pete Davidson? Anyways. Okay, let's have a gander through here and see if there's anything else before I wrap it up. Former Wasp guitarist Chris Holmes is in the second week of radiation treatment for throat and neck cancer. I watched the Chris Holmes documentary on Amazon Prime. It's quite sad, actually. He's a really talented guitarist, and, you could tell on some of those early clips with Wasp. I mean, in his day, at his peak, he was an absolute badass. But I do feel like that documentary was... it was tragic, because it kind of presents him as really a failed musician who's kind of trying his best to still be relevant in a world where that's honestly passed him by. Chuck Billy says Dave Lombardo has expressed interest in playing on the next Testament studio album. Testament singer Chuck Billy discussed the return of drummer Dave Lombardo to the group's ranks during an interview earlier this week with the WSOU 89.5 FM radio station. I'm surprised this is even being mentioned. I would have assumed Dave returning to the band means that he's playing on the next Testament studio album, and I'd also been led to believe that the Next Testament record might possibly even be coming out as early as this year. Although I would assume that's probably not the case now, knowing the backlog in the vinyl pressing plants and all sorts. And folks, I think that is pretty much all there is to talk about. Fozzie's new single, I Still Burn. I'm going to close off with this. I'm not even going to talk about Fozzie's new single because I couldn't care less. I don't like Fozzie's music. But Chris Jericho, what a fucking absolute gangster. At his age, be performing at the level that he does. And I ask for your indulgence because I'm talking about pro wrestling, which I know isn't everybody's thing. But on this past week's episode of AEW Dynamite, Chris Jericho cut a promo in promotion of the Chris Jericho Appreciation Society, which is the new heel stable he's now created. Easily one of the greatest promos I've seen in the last 20 years. And I'm a guy that cut my teeth on, Ric Flair's heel promos back in 1986 and 1987. The stuff that he did in WWE in like 1991. I was always a fan of the bad guys, and I still am. But Chris Jericho is just on a totally different level. So if you want to see a master class in cutting a wrestling promo, make sure that you go back and you watch that AEW promo that he did. It is absolutely fantastic. And I've said before, I had completely fallen out of love with pro wrestling, but AEW has managed to restore that. I absolutely fucking love that brand. And I certainly hope that they continue to go from strength to strength. The last AEW Revolution show was fantastic. Their show week in and week out is super entertaining, and it just has that vibe of, like anything can happen. And that was always the thing that I loved the most about wrestling, and what I missed the most about it when WBE decided that they were going to be PG rated and, everything was going to be scripted by Disney screenwriters and things like that. That all seems to have been brought back by Tony Khan and AEW. I think they're doing a fantastic job, and I absolutely love them. On that note, folks, I am wrapping up the news for this week. I'm also going to be wrapping up this week's episode. Thank you so much for bearing with me until the bitter end. I hope you guys enjoyed my conversation with Scott Taysom. And guess what I'm going to do? For you folks that stick around until the very end, let me tell you who I've got scheduled for episodes over the next 4 weeks. So this is like one of those after the credits teasers, and hopefully once word gets around, more people listen through to the very end. So I'm recording this on Monday, March 21st, and obviously the new episode will drop tomorrow. Tomorrow night, I'm talking to Sakis of Rotting Christ. On Thursday night, I'm talking to Sortiris of Septic Flesh. On Friday morning, I'm talking to Nathan of Gravier. Obviously, he's been on the show a couple of times. Really excited about having him back on. And then the week after that, I am speaking to the mighty Sam Bean for part 2 of what was one of the most epic episodes I've ever recorded. Sam Bean, of course, if you don't know, you should know, with Werewolves and Antichrist Imperium, a fucking badass of a man in terms of his vocals, and intellectually a great guy as well. So I'm very, very, very excited about that. I also have a desperate plea out to Kirk Weinstein, and hopefully his PR folks are going to be getting back to me soon. They did acknowledge it. So, I think I've said before, I'm 50% of the way there. I'm now 63.7% of the way there. So it may well happen at some point soon. But Sakis of Rotting Christ and Sortiris of Septic Flesh, big, big, big guests, and I'm so excited about getting them on the podcast. I've met Sakis before, fantastic guy. Sortiris I've never spoken to, and I'm a big fan of Septic Flesh. So I hope you guys are going to like those episodes, and I hope you guys are going to continue to tune into the podcast as you have done so far. I hope you have a great week ahead of you. I hope you guys are all safe and healthy. At the back end of the podcast, I always take a little bit of time to decide what song I'm going to play. And I decided to delve back into one of my Throwback Thursdays from Instagram for this one. MITHRAS, a band out of the UK, they put out a record called On Strange Loops back in, I think, 2016. It was out on Willowtip Records, a phenomenal record, criminally overlooked in my opinion, and I'm going to play out with one of my favorite tracks off that record right now. This is called When Stars Align, and I will see all of you bad, bad motherfuckers next week.
When you departed, the agony